put up his event. Your event for the 11th is already up.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna let people in.
Yay. I'm making you host again,
Okay.
but that means I'll need co-host.
Back and forth and back and forth. Give me a second.
Mhm.
Welcome to Writer's Lunch, y'all. Getting everything streaming onto YouTube, and we'll be ready to go in just a moment.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. So, National Poetry Day was actually National Bad Poetry Day was actually like a little over a week ago. But I was off getting my son a passport that day, so we couldn't do it that day, but we're doing it today. And the whole spirit of National Bad Poetry Day is that you do not have to be good at something to do it, to try it, or to enjoy it. And so we are here to embrace making bad poetry and not worry about the quality of our poetry as we all learn to write it together. We are starting at the very, very basics today. So if you've ever wanted to try poetry, if you've ever wanted to like learn more about it, whether you want to write poetry itself or you just want to use it to make yourself a better writer for prose, that's great. But we're going to start with some poetry. So there are some exercises. So have, your phone, a piece of paper, your computer handy, whatever you prefer to write on, because we're going to write some poetry. Um, but first, who the heck am I? I'm Daphne Strasser. I am an author. I write romance and horror and all things speculative fiction. I am also an editor and I specialize in romance and horror and everything speculative fiction. And I'm an armchair poet, which means that I don't have any poetry published and I mostly do it for fun and I do it for me, which I think really is the point of what we're doing today. Um, so, first up, what's poetry? I like to think of poetry as being kind of the difference between, I'm also a horse girl, just this will explain some things. The difference between a horse that is galloping, running very, very fast. It's getting far. It's lots of power, but also it's movement. Whereas poetry is a horse that is rearing in place. So it's still a ton of power, but it's very, very tightly coiled, very concentrated power. Um, and so I think that that is the difference. Poetry is about using words at their most potent, making them truly count and caring about every single syllable. I also like to think of poetry as a puzzle. This is the aspect of poetry that I really enjoy. When you have different forms of poetry, which we will talk about, which is how many syllables you can use, how many lines you have. Do things have to rhyme? Does it have any sort of cadence or meter to it? All of those things make a puzzle, and you have to go and find the right words to put in the right order so that it fits into the puzzle and still says what you want it to say. Um, and that's the part of poetry that I enjoy. Now, there is free verse. Free verse is to do whatever with your words that you want to. I don't like free verse because free verse to me is too broad. It's too, I can't think outside the box if I don't know what the box is. I enjoy having a box so that I can work around it. If you want to learn more about poetry, and I know this is going to go very fast because it is a lot, but if you want to learn more about poetry, my number one recommendation is to read The Ode Less Traveled by Stephen Fry. It is a poetry book and it is instruction manual and it is deeply entertaining. I loved it the first time that I read it. I've since purchased it and read it multiple times. Um, there's also writing poems by Robert Wallace and Michelle Basseau. That's more like kind of a textbook. And then Patterns of Poetry by Miller Williams is if you like the puzzle aspect of it, it gives you basically all kinds of poems that you can write and all of their structures. But back to what is poetry. So in prose, a line starts at the left and continues to the right until there's no more space and then it wraps around. So if you write a paragraph, where your line breaks are depends on what your page looks like. If it's a smaller page, you're going to have more line breaks. And if it's a bigger, wider page, then you're going to have less line breaks. And it really doesn't matter where the line breaks, with the exception of starting a new paragraph. In verse, a line ends where you decide it should. So you break it off and start on the next. And this is the absolute most basic form of poetry, is to simply do line breaks. So this is a piece of prose that I wrote. Deirdre hummed to herself as she strolled through the endless shelves of the library. She ran her fingertips along the spines of the books like a lover's caress. Books were never more than they seemed, books never lied. And now let's go ahead and take that and turn that into verse. Deirdre hummed to herself as she strolled through the endless shelves of the library. She ran her fingertips along the spines of the books like a lover's caress. Books were never more than they seemed, books never lied. Um, is that good poetry? Probably not. But I did do something here, right? I changed the way that the sentences are read by changing where my line breaks are. And I think that's going to bring us to our first exercise. So take something, anything, a book next to you, an email you got this morning, or like your, well, grocery list isn't a great example, but like anything that you have, a text message that you received, um, and turn it from prose into poetry by utilizing your line breaks. We're going to do this real quick 5 minute exercise, and we will get back at 1:13. You can feel free to share yours in the chat if you finish it early, or we'll read some of ours aloud after that. All right, everyone, welcome back. I had to make my chat window wider so I wasn't accidentally giving you guys line breaks that you didn't mean to put in there. So, Halfley, am I saying that correctly? Oh, you're still muted. There you go.
Right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, happily.
All right. So do you want to read yours out loud or just we can look at the chat?
No, I'm happy to read it. Let me just
Okay.
scroll up. Here we go. Okay. Spring was start again. Spring was acquainting the air, blooms on porch, flowers, sneezing with allergies, a dope hit, sun peeking over the mountains, perfect start to the day, Thursday, mojito, pineapple, and coconut, sipped with a straw, with a mocktail umbrella. How refreshing. A chew. Oh, bless me.
Lovely. That's a fun, I guess it's spring. Makes me think of summer with the coconuts. So I took mine from, I've been reading my son these Hank the Cowdog books, and so I took mine from the first sentence off the back. Um, when little Alfred runs away from home and winds up in the dark, enchanted forest, being trailed by a bobcat, Hank the Cowdog knows that it's up to him to save his young master. Martha put in hers. You left. I sat alone on the balcony, facing the traffic. People, shielded in their cars, stared straight ahead, each traveling their own direction. Where were they going so fast? Love it. Sean, yours didn't come with line breaks, but that's okay.
Sorry, doing it on my phone. So the commas are the line breaks.
Oh, I see. Accomplice to the villain, the fallen, and the kiss of dusk atmosphere. Scarred, my friends, one golden summer storm. The nightingale, remarkably bright creatures. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. And because I've given this presentation before, and I know that we always run out of time, let's continue. Okay, so that was the most basic thing. So let's make it more complicated. Let's add in form. Um, Form is your skeleton, right? There's why I have pictures of skeletons on the screen. Form is how pieces are put together. So many animals, specifically mammals, but many animals have the same basic skeletal structure, right? A lot of us have spines, ribs, animals that have legs have the leg bones. Like we're more or less put together in this. We have the same component parts, but they're put together differently, and it creates completely different creatures. And then you also have the octopus, which does not have bones at all, and is therefore, basically free verse, what free verse is. So form is the structure on which you hang your poetry. And that gives it form. So what are the parts of it? So first we have lines. We broke up our prose into lines in our last exercise. So you can have rules about that. Are they fixed length or are they variable? Are some of your lines going to be longer than others? Are they very long lines or very short lines? Where do they stop? And there are two types of stopping in poetry. There's end stopping, which is each line contains a single thought. And then there's enjambment, which is the thought carries over from one line to the next. And so you can have poetry where each line is its own thought, and so you're having a series of lines. But for the most part, we see enjambment, which is what we saw in our examples before. Then once you have your lines, you can form them into stanzas, which is groups of lines that create that keep a single topic or a single thought together. You can use these as a way of breaking a poem into repeating patterns. So when you have a song, which is a type of poetry, we have this concept of verse and chorus. The chorus is something that's repeated multiple times throughout the song, and the verse is not necessarily the same each time, but it carries the story through. And so you can have repeating patterns in your poetry, and having stanzas, which is groups of lines, allows you to do that. So do you include stanzas? Some poetry is just a series of lines and some are broken up into stanzas. Again, are they the same length? Do you have 6 lines in every stanza or do you have different lengths of stanzas? And do you have them be long or short? So this is our exercise. It is pronounced England Milor. It is Welsh, and that is why it is spelled like this. Um, so you have 7 syllables per line. A syllable is the smallest component part of a word, right? So if you have like a single syllable word would be like bang. A 2 syllable word would be banging, right? So you've got the what comes up as 1 syllable is just like a single beat of your word. In case you did not know that. Um, all right, the England Milor has 7 syllables per line, 3 lines in a stanza, and all of your lines rhyme. So it looks like this. S stands for syllable, and you have your rhyming scheme over here with your A, B, and C. It's going to be our next exercise, a little more involved. So we'll do 10 minutes for this guy. Yeah, we'll do 10 minutes for this guy and come back at 1:30. Also, if you ever have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or throw them in the chat and we'll get to them. All right, and we're back. Um, I put my poem in the chat just to realize that I cannot count very well, and so my first line is 8 syllables, but we're gonna work with it anyway. I'll just eliminate one as we go. Cross paths in what was once, or what was our home, roommates now and so alone, loving looks now face of stone. Forever a touch away, take for granted that you'll stay, caught in the games that we play. I wish you were more sincere, that you didn't dread me near. I'll fade to background, my dear. Would anybody else like to share theirs? No? Okay, that's fine. As long as you're having fun. So what comes next? We did a little bit of rhyming, but let's talk about more rhyming because rhyming is also an important part of poetry. There are pure rhymes. That is when it rhymes truly in sound, right? There's no variation on it. So little did I know that fireflies don't glow when placed in snow. The O on the end of each of those words is the same, becomes a pure rhyme. This is different from what we would call a partial rhyme. So the mouse walked back alone after a night out filled with drink. When he finally got home, he found out that he was a skunk. So alone and home are a partial rhyme. One of them has an N sound, one of them has an M sound, but the primary sound of the word, which is the O, is the same. Similarly, you have drink and skunk. Both of them have the NK sound at the end, which is rhyming, but the vowel sound, the I and the U, is different. So these are partial rhymes. It's not going to feel quite as whole as a pure rhyme. This is called assonance, is when the, assonance is when the vowel rhymes. Consonance is when the consonants rhyme. Consonants are the non-vowels. Then you have I rhymes. I like these. These are tricky. These are words that rhyme in appearance only. They do not sound the same. So when you read the poetry out loud, it is very jarring. But if you just look at it, it seems correct. So I find that with true love, there is little much to prove. A feeling strong as wind can never be unkind. They look like they should rhyme, but they don't. Hoffley in the chat is asking, will you share the slides with us? Absolutely. We have a link where we post all of our slides after each writer's lunch. So I will get that to you, or one of my fabulous co-hosts will get that to you in the chat soon. Then there are rich rhymes, which is it looks the same and it sounds the same, but it is a totally different word. He didn't know if he could bear the thought of snuggling with a bear. My husband does not like when you rhyme the word with itself, but it is a completely valid thing to do, especially if it's not even the same word. Of all the books that I have read, the best are the ones covered in red. Same sounding word, different meaning altogether. So how do you add this all up? You have rhyming lines where you have the rhyme within the line. So perhaps the pink balls were a touch too much, but my husband's truck has never looked better. You have the line, it's not rhyming each line, it's rhyming within the line. You can also have rhyming schemes. So a rhyming couplet is when the two lines together rhyme. A rhyming triplet is when you have 3 lines together that rhyme. You have a cross rhyme, which is alternating. And an envelope rhyme, which is where you have the first and last lines rhyme and the middle 2 lines rhyme. Make sure we have. And I have examples, or I should. Aha. The best poetry of man has been written in the can. Rhyming triplet. There are many ways to get out of this maze, yet I've been stuck for days. The cross rhyme. Here I sit on a mushroom, wings tucked up into my back, as I watch the flowers bloom and eat a little snack. And then the envelope rhyme. A few words here, I think, over my husband's grave. Some I would save, or some I would say, but save. I don't want to go to the clink. So here's our next exercise. We're going to have some different rhyming schemes. So you have the rupant, 4 syllables in each line. The first 3 rhyme with each other, the last one does not. Then you have the next stanza, the first 3 rhyme with each other. The last one rhymes with the last line from the stanza above. Any questions before we go on to our new exercise? Okay. Then we'll do another 10 minutes, and I hope you guys will enjoy sharing them after that. Okay, so Halfie has asked if we can explain the exercise again. So this is, there are 8 lines in this poem. The first 3 lines rhyme with each other, and then the last line does not rhyme with them. And then you have another 3 lines that all rhyme with each other. They don't have to match anything else. And then the last line, the 8th line, rhymes with the 4th line. Does that make more sense?
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Okay. As I find myself counting on my fingers, repeat. Okay. I'm coming back. So I shared mine with the group. Baby books strewn across the room, and like them soon my sanity. Hair bun all messed, I'm still not dressed. I've long dismissed my vanity. And then Coffee is playing around with her different versions of hers, working with the different forms, which is a lot of fun. It's interesting to see what you have to cut, what you have to change to make it fit. Anybody else want to share theirs?
It's very hard. I got broken rhymes.
Joe says, when the sky is blue and the wind is true, it's hard to see who will stand up and hold fast. But when the rain is here and the yard arm sheer, and I blow we a fear, it's an old salt keeping grasp. Bad sailor rhymes. That's fun. I like the theme. Okay. Scooching right along. Let's talk about meter. Meter is one of the more difficult aspects of poetry. And we'll get through it together, guys. So the way we talk. English is a language of emphasis. Each word is given its own weight and push as we speak it within a sentence. These are natural accents we impart as we speak. Some languages, like Chinese, do not stress one syllable more than another. You can manipulate the word order so these natural stresses create rhythm. So you may not really notice the way that stresses work in English until you've started playing with them. I bolded the emphasized syllable for each of these, and there's a symbol for that. So you've got what I've got here, the purple little, what looks like an apostrophe, means that is your stressed syllable. And then the little scoop, it means that it's an unstressed syllable. How do you know the difference? It takes practice. We'll start with that. Typically words that are kind of filler or shorter or transitional words are going to be your unemphasized one. So ISA, for example, so English, ing is emphasized very slightly. English is so that last part flows. So you've got three unstressed syllables in a row. So let's play with that. So in this case, I did not do my bolding very well, but in this case, I have manipulated. So we've got a pattern of unstressed and stressed. The English language stresses sounds, so authors change the order, making rhythmic beats appear as natural things. You choose a way to write your words so readers see the pattern. There's no rhyme or notes, yet music shows when writing ebb and flow. So it sounds different. It does, right? That sounds very different from what I had done in the previous one. And that's what's called meter, is the manipulation of these stressed and unstressed syllables so that it flows in a certain way, that kind of up, down, up, down, up, down. All right. This is going to be we're going to do this exercise. We're going to do it. And I understand that there's going to be questions because stressed versus unstressed syllables is one of the most confusing parts of poetry. So this is what's called a skeletonic couplet. If in high school you ever learned what was called an iamb, so the iambic pentameter is what's typically talked about when we're talking about Shakespeare. So an iamb is that coupling of the unstressed, stressed that we see here. I'm going to work on mine. Let's see if I can show you while I'm working on mine so that you guys can, if you don't want to write your own, you can witness what is happening as I struggle through to make my own. Let's just share screen. Share. And then, can you see Notepad?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
great. Let's try it. So we've got I'm gonna give myself a couple minutes to work on this because I'd really like to talk about the last part of this presentation, which is fun other types of poetry. So I'm gonna work on this for like 5 minutes. And if y'all want to work on yours or you want to just watch me struggle, that's okay. So let's try it. Um, unstressed, unstressed. That changed my. There we go. All right, here we go. We put something together. Amaze my mind and take my dime. The circus greets a town it meets with flaming swords and flowing words. Kind of futzed my last rhyme there, but we made it work. So you can see as I was doing this that the unemphasized words are things like my, the, and, the kind of smaller words that fade into the background of when you're speaking. So amaze my mind and take my dime. So you get these bigger, more unique words are going to be taking your emphasized role. So when you have something like flaming, the ing really falls into the background. So you get this two-syllable word that you start with an accent and end with an unaccent, or start with an emphasis and end unemphasized.
Is there, this is a really daft question probably, but is there a list somewhere of these types of words, do you know, initially to just start to work with until you get into this practice?
The book that I mentioned earlier, An Ode Less Traveled by Stephen Fry, has a really great discussion of it. I'm typing that in the chat. Has a really good discussion of it, including a lot of examples. But also, if you do just search online, be like, look into Poetry Meter, like someone out there, I'm sure has a list for you, which reminds me, I need to get you the slides. But with our last few minutes, let's talk about some other types of poetry. So acrostic poetry. Oops, backspace. So this is a type of poetry where you use all of the starting letter of each word in a line, spell out a word. So in this case, I've used my name and I've created acrostic poetry. So doomsday cults appear like phantoms, hearkening the coming night as was always expected. The way that I split up my lines is entirely there just to spell a word. That's acrostic poetry. You also have concrete poetry, which is when you use the form of the poetry to make a picture. And it's very interesting for me because it's all about spacing line breaks just to create an image. You're just painting very literally with words. This one creates a panda. Oh, we're not going to do this exercise. Well, you could do this exercise on your own time if you have time after this. But blackout poetry, I have been working on. This is my exercise for the year. So every day I got this old vintage sci-fi novel. And every day I take a different page of the sci-fi novel and I do a piece of blackout poetry on it, which is when you choose specific words that you want to remain on the page and you mark out everything else. And so you're using the words that are there, which is your limiting thing, what words are there, and you are just picking out the ones you want to keep to create a message. You can do it the way that it's shown on here, where you have it's just read top down, or you can do it where you circle things and draw arrows and you jump from word to word and you lead your reader across the page to create the message that you want. And this is a really fun way if you want to just get into the puzzle of poetry. This is a really fun way to do it. You can do it with anything. You can do it with an old book. You can do it with emails like we did with our first exercise. You can do it with anything. It's a lot of fun, and I encourage you to try this out. But we are almost out of time, and I want to make sure I do get those slides posted in the chat. But I'm Daphne Strassert. You can reach me at daphnestrassert.com, or you can find me anywhere on the internet as Daphne the Writer. I hope you had a lot of fun. If you guys have any last questions in our last few minutes, please go ahead and say them. You can unmute or you can put them in the chat. But I'm happy to hear from you.
I was just asking about the blackout poetry. I've
Mhm.
heard of it before. Is it just usually one word from each sort of line, or can you use a series of words from a line?
You can do it however you want. If there's a series of words in a line that work really well together, you can absolutely leave them together. Or you can just create a whole new sentence yourself out of different pieces of words throughout the page.
Cool. Thank you. Lovely session. Thank you. I'm glad I came across it.
Glad you enjoyed it. Let me pull up where are writer's lunch presentations. 1 second. I have to find it. There it is. All right. You should be able to access this. It's got not just today's writer's lunch, but also a whole bunch of older ones, but you should be able to find bad poetry in there. Yes, it is definitely there. And next week, if you would like to join us again next week, Ian is going to be talking about the return of the good guys. He'll be talking about writing morally upstanding heroes and how that's different from writing the anti-hero or the dark, gritty, grim, dark characters, right? So we're looking at Superman and characters like that, where they are unapologetically very good people. And so I hope you'll join us then. Thank you again for coming. I hope that you had a good time practicing some bad poetry.